Let me begin with a few questions. Question: how long do koalas sleep? Koalas sleep, I hear some people participating, which I love that. Koalas sleep actually 22 hours a day. And the reason they sleep that long is because they have some issues in their digestive system where the toxin in leaves cause them to not be able to break them up. So they need all this extra sleep as it makes them feel better. How about this one? Let's take a look at this guy. How long do lions sleep? Lions sleep 18 hours a day, if you can believe that. That's what male lions do. They sleep for a long time. And just like the male counterparts, us right here. Next one is this. How about this guy? How long do dolphins sleep? You've stopped giving me feedback because you're like, I'm on the under on each of these. Well, they're like us in that mammals, they sleep for 8 hours. The only difference is, it's a big difference. Half their brain sleeps for 4 hours. Then the other half sleeps for the other 4 hours, and they switch back and forth. That's why when you see a dolphin sleeping, which I've never seen, but they have one eye open and one eye closed. That way they can protect against predators, and they can also get the oxygen they need to breathe. Let's look at this animal. How about this one? How long do ants sleep? Some people are saying never. Some people are saying an hour. It's starting to get a lot of fun right now. Hold on, you're never gonna get this. They sleep for just about over 4 hours a day. But this is the difference. I wanna try this. They take 250 power naps of 60 seconds each. Did you hear that? So they're power napping all the time. Some of you do that during the message. How about this animal? Let's take a look at this one. How about, I tell you how long some of these, hey, hold on. No, you know what? This common thing that they hibernate for 17 years. Let me just educate you in church today. They don't hibernate for 17 years. They're not sleeping that entire time and come up, but they do have sleep patterns. All I'm gonna say is this. Some of them that I've been around are sleeping forever. And if I ever see any more of them, I'm telling you, they're going down. That's the thing. How about us? Let's take a look at us. This is some of you right now that are watching online. This was you 5 minutes ago. Now listen, we sleep for between average 6 to 8 hours. And we get about 90 minutes of REM sleep. So you know that's the sleep we really need. And then there's probably, this percentages say there's a third of us that sleep only 6 hours or less. Not saying that's great, but that's 33% of the people. Said all that to say this. I don't want to talk to you about physical rest. It's important. I'm not minimizing the fact that we need our sleep and physical rest is important. But I want to talk to you about the whole package, about physical, spiritual, and emotional rest. That's what we need. They all play off each other. We minimize the spiritual rest that we need. We minimize it. Maybe it's just me, but we need our rest emotionally, physically, and spiritually. And summer is the time where we're kind of like we think we can fill our full tanks to get through the fall. You can't do it like that. We need our rest. So that's what this summer series is all about. I know many of you are going to be traveling this summer, but I hope you're going to tune in online. Each week, we're going to talk about a promise of God that gives rest. If you got a Bible, open it up to Matthew chapter 11. So thankful to kick off this series to our entire church this weekend. The series is called Summer of Rest. We're talking about resting in the promises of God. We've only got 3 verses for us today. They're 3 really important verses that give us the reality of rest. And I want to focus in on the first promise. The first promise that we're talking about is resting in God's presence. And so we need to rest in his presence. There's so much talk about emotional health. It's so important. I'm telling you, the generation behind me, or even my generation, we didn't understand enough of it. And so we minimized it. And so our health is important, but you can't short circuit mental health with not taking a look at physical rest and, more importantly, spiritual rest. I'm not saying that spiritual rest will cure and finalize and is the answer to all mental health issues. Turn to your neighbor and say, he's not saying that. I'm not. But what I am saying is we minimize it. And so we're gonna focus our attention in God's house with God's people on the rest that we need. So Matthew chapter 11, 3 verses, 28, 29, and 30, key verses, great to memorize those verses. I'm gonna show it to you in a few different translations on the board. First one is from the Message. And so look how Eugene Peterson says it. Are you tired, worn out, burned out on religion? Come to me, get away with me, and you recover your life. Jesus says, I'll show you how to take a real rest. Walk with me and work with me. Watch how I do it. Learn the unforced rhythms of grace. I won't lay anything heavy or ill-fitting on you. Keep company with me and you'll learn to live freely and lightly. How about this one? I like this version. I read it often, and it's really good to read different translations to kind of get a flavor of what it looks like and what it says. Amplified version says, come to me, this is Jesus, red letters, all you who labor and are heavy laden and are overburdened, and I will cause you to rest. I will ease and relieve and refresh your souls. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle, meek, I am humble, lowly in heart, and you will find rest, relief, and ease, and refreshment, and recreation, and blessed quiet for your souls. For my yoke is wholesome, useful, good, not harsh, hard, sharp, or pressing, but comfortable, gracious, and pleasant. And my burden is light and it's easy to be borne. Let's take a look at it in the ESV. This is the one that we teach from normally. ESV says it like this. Jesus' words, red letter, he says, come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you, learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart. You will find rest for your souls, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Father, I pray this would be a summer of rest. I pray for the unsettled hearts that are in the room, watching online. Some of us, we know we're unsettled. Some of us don't even realize it as we're bearing burdens in different capacities with what we are called to do and who we are called to be. And so I'm just asking, Lord, that this summer would be a summer where we could truly find the rest. And would you enable me to share Jesus' words in a compelling way for those who have heard this before, that you would hear something fresh and new. And for those hearing it for the first time, many in our church, I pray that these words would provide rest. If you agree with that prayer, say amen. Amen. I want to give you several realities of rest, as many as we can get to. First one is this, reality of rest, resting in the promises of God. The invitation for rest is personal. It's a personal invitation. Jesus says this, come. Did you see that? He's like, come on. He's like, hey, come with me. He's like, come to me. Love that about the text. Don't minimize it. He's standing on the mountaintop. He's talking to many people. But he's like singling you out. I want you, man, come. I want you, come. I want you in the back, come. Come to me. And it's like this hand motion. Just do it and hit your neighbor in the head. Just go like this. It's just for fun. Okay, good. And it's like, come on, man. Let's go. Come to me. Now, if we double click on this word that's translated come in the English language from the Greek, it literally is the same word that's translated in Matthew chapter 4, verse 19. We looked at it a couple weeks ago. Follow. It's follow me. So it's the same Greek word. He's just like, hey, follow me and I will give you rest. He's calling out to them to follow. Now, I said it's an invitation for all, but look at the qualifiers. He's like, I'm talking to you who are labor. I'm talking to you. Please go back to just the verse, guys. Please, thank you. Getting ahead of me, causing me unrest. Feel better. Okay, let's go. Labor and heavy laden. Labor is a term in the original language. We only see it 23 times in the New Testament. And labor is those who are weary, those who are worn out, those who are overworked. Like, I'm weary, I'm worn. Now, laden, and I just want us to see this because there's some qualifiers. So heavy laden is this idea, it literally means to load up. And so imagine, what do you do if you're getting the kids on vacation and you're going away, maybe to the Dells, or you're heading up to Michigan to go on the beach, or you're taking a long trip down south someplace, going to see the family. You get the minivan and you just load it up with stuff. Anybody with me? Put all this stuff in. Some of us, we buy groceries, and aren't there grocery stores down there? Why don't you just buy them down there? And you put all this stuff in, and then if you're like Jody and I, we pack the SUV and we're like, we don't have any room for the kids. Is that really a bad thing? And we would just go, no, I'm kidding. We got an Uber for them. No, we didn't get an Uber. They didn't have Ubers back then, but I'd be thinking about it now if I was a parent. But anyway, so you pack it all in. And you go forward with your trip. The difference here is you're the minivan, you're the SUV, you're the moving truck. This Greek word means to load. Everything's being loaded on you. You are carrying a load. Some of us in here, we're carrying a load that is unmanageable, and you can't do it yourself. And you're fooling yourself. And we got all these responsibilities that are important and God-given. But we can't do it. That's why we're doing this series, because we're on rest. And so I took a survey in the lobby before the service, and I asked this question: what are the top burdens that we're loaded down with? And maybe you participated in the survey, maybe you didn't. Here's the top 5 burdens. Now we're ready for it. Let's go, guys. Get it to me. Top 5 burdens we're carrying at Highpoint. If you've been around here for enough, you know I didn't really do this in the lobby. Somebody come up and say, really? Where were you? I didn't see you. No, I just make this stuff up. I'm just having a little fun. But I talk to you after the service, and I pray with you, and I have lunch with a lot of people, and I have coffee with them, and we get prayer requests every single week, and this is what we see. These are the burdens. There's physical burdens. And I don't have to go into great detail here. Like, there's a lot of pain and difficulty. I was praying with a person right over here last couple weeks ago, and just, they have some physical ailments. Praying for God's healing. The Bible says, anoint the person with oil. And we do that here. Second thing is this, relational burdens. And this is, with the family, with the friends, with the people here at church. Some people sit on this side over here. Some people sit on this side. And then I find out, I'm like, you used to sit together. No, we're not sitting together anymore. And there's relational strife. That's why we have 2 services. Just kidding. But there's relational strife in there, and there's difficulty. So there's relational burdens. There's spiritual burdens. And these are the ones that we're talking about, which we're going to see in a moment. There's financial burdens. And lastly, there's emotional burdens. What was going on in the text? Put your sandals on. Theirs were primarily spiritual. So for them in the text, Jesus was saying, come to me, because the spiritual leaders were laying a heavy burden on the people. Rules, regulations, requirements. And so the spiritual leadership was making it very difficult. What they had to do was like, oh my gosh, another thing I got to do. Or maybe you were growing up in a church where it was about what you can't do, what you shouldn't do, what not to do. And your whole Christian experience is defined by what I don't do. Anybody been there? Come on, anybody? And so it's like, it's about the rules instead of the relationship. It's about the regulations instead of the relationship. It's about the requirements instead of the relationship. And if that's spiritual unrest. So these are the burdens that we carry. And they work against us. And so some of us, let's lighten it up a little bit on a heavy message for an intro service for a series. Let's lighten it up. Some of us look like this. Remember, we're burdened. And we got all this luggage that we're carrying. And we got all these things that we're carrying. And I want to remind you, if this is you, Psalm 55 says, cast your burdens on the Lord, that we're to give them over to him, that he wants to help us to carry these burdens. Cast your burdens on the Lord, Psalm 55 says, and he will sustain you. Some of us, that's the verse you need right there. That's it, man. He's going to sustain you. But then there's others of us that we think, well, no, I'm not going to do that, but I have just as many burdens. And so we're like this guy. This is the guy. And so he's carrying a couch and he's got the office chair and he's like, I'm just going to do it myself. And so some of us are like, that's pretty creative. That's got a lot of ingenuity. He gets an A for creativity and ingenuity. He gets an F for companionship. He gets an F for sharing the load. He gets an F for transparency. You can't do it all yourself. Galatians chapter 6, verse 2, it tells us that we're to bear one another's burdens. And so this isn't a good picture. So Jesus is saying, come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden. And then he says what? I will give you rest. There's the promise. So let's get to our next reality. The next reality is that the promise of rest is supernatural. So there's a promise in the text. We see it 2 times. Don't miss it. Don't miss it. I will give you rest. What kind of rest? Jesus defines it. Rest for your souls. That's the immaterial part of you that lives on forever. That's the part that the Lord wants to give you rest deep within the center of your being. That's the rest we need. That's why it's not just about physical. It's not just about sleep. It's not just about emotional. It's about the spiritual realm, and they're all connected in this mixer or this cocktail, and you can't separate them out, but you got to make sure that, man, I'm full spiritually, and that will help me in the other areas. For some, it's just like, man, we just need sleep. It's physical. For all, I'm just telling you, man, we need this spiritually, we need to be spiritually full moving in to the summer. So this is a promise, and so we see it twice. There's 2 things that I want to talk about with a promise. First is our promises can sometimes fall short. You're with your kid and you're like, it's like 9:30 in the morning, they get up. I want ice cream. It's 9:30 in the morning. Have some Cheerios, okay? No, don't have some Cheerios. That's got too much sugar in it. Have some wheat, whatever those wheat things are that taste horrible. Just reliving my childhood right now. And so no, or it's like, and then ice cream you don't get, by the end of the day you forget, and then you don't fulfill the promise. Or it's like, hey, I'm gonna come to the baseball game, or and you don't fulfill it. And sometimes it's just because of time, and there's good reasons, and there's good excuses. But for many of us, promises turn into good intentions that don't get fulfilled. Anybody? Don't throw around the promise thing. It's just like, because oftentimes we fail to do it. So a biblical promise is different. And so that's why we want to put it on the screen. A biblical promise is very different. So a biblical promise is an assurance that God is at work. A biblical promise is assurance that God is active. We know for those who can find spiritual rest and who believe that we can come to Jesus and find rest, we know that God is active in the world apart from us. Doesn't all rest on us. He is at work. He's not a distant God. He's at work in the details. And so God is at work, and a biblical promise is an assurance that God is at work. He's active. Therefore, his followers, is that you? I didn't put, therefore, you. You know why? Because not everybody claims to be his follower. Are you his follower? And I'm grateful for a church that, some people are like, I don't know. You're not being judged. I'm not sure. That's okay. But know where you're at. And if you're a follower of his, then you can claim these promises. And so, therefore, his followers can walk by faith and wait by faith with confidence. He's not going to do it on your timetable. But this enables us to take another step. This enables us to maybe take a step back and wait. Anybody been here? Got a thing with the kids and you're waiting. And they're out of the house now. They're not on your responsibility, but you're praying that they're going to really turn themselves over to Jesus. Finally, they have the truth. They know the truth. And you're just called to wait, trusting that God will complete what he started. And so we just have to be careful that not all promises, not everything we read in the Bible is a promise. Some is prophecy. Don't mix it up. Some are practical principles that can help us. But there's some promises in God's word. There's over 3,000 promises, not for everyone, for his followers. They're not all the same. There's some promises, and now we're getting theological, for the church. There's some promises for Israel, his people. Like I don't want to get all into this, open up a big can of worms. All I'm saying is there's promises in the Bible, and as we read the Bible, understand a promise. Jesus is promising rest for our souls spiritually, which bleeds into our physical and emotional rest too, that needs to be full. That's what he's giving to us. So let's get really practical. We're a really practical church when it comes to the Bible. Let's talk about being overworked, or maybe, the common word is burnout. Are you experiencing burnout? We can experience burnout at work, in the home. We can experience burnout in ministry. So let's start with the workplace. Give you some statistics just to show you that this message is on topic. 89% of workers have experienced burnout within the past year. 89, nearly 9 out of 10? Maybe you're sitting here. You have the privilege of managing a crew at your work. Or maybe you're in the top dog with the top office, and 9 out of 10 people would say they've experienced burnout within the past year. And so it's a little alarming. Now, is that all real in reality? That's what they're feeling. And we have to know people's feelings are important. Second thing is this, 77%, so nearly 8 out of 10 employees have experienced feelings of burnout at their current job. And so it's like, man, right now at this job and what I'm being called to do. How about this statistic? 21% of employees feel burned out every day. So this is like, hey, this is how I'm feeling about the last year. This is how I'm feeling every single day. 2 out of 10 people, that's a lot. 29% are remote workers. So a lot of my kids now, they all are remote work, and they experience burnout at work very often. So 3 out of 10. And you're at home, and this causes me unrest. My oldest kids, okay, my oldest child, she lives close to here, okay, she's over at North Aurora right now, so I can talk about her. And her husband both work at home. And so they got a great house. But you know what they do? They just show up at our house. I'm like, you got a house, you bought a house. And they do it but why? But I'm being real serious now, because you know what? They need a change of scenery, because they're at their home is their work. And it's just, that's not really helpful. Yeah, they got another room and they have an office. It's really hard. And so you got to get out. And so they come over to our house because, I don't know, what is our house, the party house? The full fridge and the big screen TV? I mean, what's going on here? And so we're thinking about moving. Does anyone want to buy a house? I'm kidding around. Okay, so the next one is working for more than 55 hours. This is like 50 to 55 hours a week increases burnout risks. That doesn't say you are burned out. It says it increases the risk of burnout if you're not careful and if you don't feed yourself and get some refreshment. Let's turn to ministry. We'll go really fast like this. So this is just for Pastor Craig and I. 40% of all pastors are high risk for burnout. 4 out of 10. We got basically, 75 people on our team, and that includes our preschool teachers, and that includes some part-time people. Like 4 out of 10 of them are feeling burned out. 41% of pastors feel like quitting within the last year. I mean, that's a lot, 41%. Burnout for these pastors is 69%. Next one, 55% of pastors doubt their calling. And this is really important. And I've seen this in our experience. I have a privilege to pour into a lot of pastors throughout the country, and we're seeing this, and it's scary to me. And again, there's no condemnation, like, the gifts and calling are irrevocable. That's what it says in Romans. That's like, Like, I'm not saying that people can't go part-time or do something different or everything else. I'm just saying there's a certain thing about the calling that I don't feel like, for me speaking, that I could be the man that God has called me to be, or the follower or the husband without this calling. And Jody and I have a mutual calling, and so that means if you don't like me, you're stuck with me. So go find another church. I'm just kidding. Okay, so only 35% of pastors under the age of 45, that's Craig and I, are very satisfied with their vacation as a pastor. And then look at the older generation compared to 58%. Now, I'm just showing these numbers have flipped over the last, since 2015. So it used to be, I'm just saying it's real. Turn to your neighbor and say it's real. For burnout, it is real. And so that's why we need rest. That's why this topic is so important. Third reality of resting in God's presence. My hope is that this message is going to just give you peace. And we're having a little fun. I like to have fun in church. I like the humor. We got it. Preaching is defined as truth communicated through personality. We're going to have a pastor's roundtable tomorrow. We got a bunch of pastors coming from our network and our church. And so Monday, Tuesday, we're going to talk about preaching. And truth is communicated through personality. And so your personality is important to come through. And so we like to have fun. I hope you like to have fun here. But the truth is, we want to get serious about this topic. You can see there's communion stations that are going to be all around the worship center. We're going to end with communion to find rest. And so that's just prepping you where we're going. Third reality, though, is rest. It's relational. And so there's relationship that has to happen. Relationship with you and the Lord, relationship with each other. And so interestingly, if you look at these three verses, there's three commands. And so the commands give us, I'm going to give you one S word for each of the commands. And so the first command is come. Remember? Come. It's follow, translated into other places in the Greek language. So Jesus is like, come, follow me. Let's go. Come on, I can give you the rest you need, especially for those who are burned out over religion. And I'm just so thankful that we're a church where people who feel burned out on religion are finding rest here. Can we just praise God for that? That I just had this conversation with three people up front last week. I've never been to a church like this. Every time somebody says that, I'm getting a little nervous. Uh-oh, what's that mean? And they're like, I didn't understand the Bible. I understand the Bible better now because I came here today. And so follow, come. Let me give you the word. The word is seek, S word. So we got to seek Jesus. We got to seek rest. Second is take my yoke. So a yoke was what was an animal was yoked to each other, two oxen. Get the picture? None of us are farmers. Maybe you are married to one, like a farmer's daughter. That was an orchard, so it doesn't count. But think of a yoke. There's two oxen treading, and they're together. They're consistent. They're moving. They're in unison. And so Jesus is like, that's what I want you to be with me. I want you to be yoked to me. We're not equal, but we're in unison. I mean, think about this picture. He could have said, you're the caboose, I'm the engine. Get behind me, shut up, and I'll pull you along. I mean, that's the God we serve. He wants to walk with us and through it. We're tied together in unity. Take my yoke. And so the word here is surrender. Like, we got to surrender some stuff to walk in unison with Christ. And then the third word is, S word is submit. And what he says, learn from me. And so we're not going to learn if we don't, all of us have to learn. We have to submit ourselves to others. People are just saying education is important, not important. And I believe it's important. I don't care what your degree is. Your degree doesn't matter. Do you know what's important? I'm not using the degree that I received in my undergrad. It's beneficial, but I'm not using it. Don't miss this. Like, whatever it is, if it's an apprenticeship program, if it's a degree, if it's a junior college, the point is you put yourself under somebody who has more knowledge. And that's called humility. And people who self-learn are awesome. But if you never put yourself under someone to learn, you're never going to put yourself under the Lord. And so it's this, I got to submit my will. and I got to submit away. And, all of us have had the teacher, and it's like, you just write the paper based on their perspective and what they think, even though you think very differently, because you're not stupid. You want to get an A. But I'm joking, but seriously, sometimes we don't agree, but for a season, we put ourselves under, and we want to learn. It's the process of learning. So seek, surrender, and submit. Let me share some quotes from a book that has been helpful to me to find rest in this topic. I'm not good with this topic. Can I just be honest? This isn't like you hear me talk about evangelism. Man, he's out sharing. You hear me talk about studying the Bible. Man, he reads through the Bible every year. I'm just not that great at this. And because I'm very busy and because of a lot of responsibility, I'm not complaining. Maybe you're like me. And so this has been a really helpful book to me, The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry. John Mark Comer, a great guy. We interviewed him on our podcast. And he says, here's my point. The solution to overbusy life is not more time. It's to slow down and simplify our lives or what really matters. Like I am in a simplification process with my life at this stage. That's not going anywhere. That's not being productive. In our church, that's not essential. Like what are the essentials? Because we have too many things competing for our time, our energy, and our resources. Is that helpful? Like eliminate. What do I need to eliminate to be more effective? And then John Mark Comer goes on to say, ultimately, nothing in this life apart from God can satisfy our desires. Tragically, we continue to chase after our desires at infinitum. The result, a chronic state of restlessness, or worse, angst, anger, anxiety, disillusion, depression, all which lead to a life of hurry, a life of busyness, overload, shopping, materialism, careerism, a life of more. Anybody been there? Thanks for the 3 people who are honest. I mean, I don't know. I just I think there's something in me. There's this thing. Nobody's doing it to me. I'm just doing it to myself. And, I don't know if it's, some daddy wound where I'm trying to please. I'm trying to do something. I want somebody to look at me and I did a good job. Like, I know it. And I still do it. And so I'm just saying it's really hard. And so as I'm personally bearing way too much, and I will not be saying this at 11, we won't use the tape, I just think we struggle with this. And there's a restlessness in our hearts. And some of us, we haven't identified what it is. Others of us, we have, and we want to be successful. We want to have a career. We want to provide for our kids. But don't do it at the expense of your self-health and your relationship with the Lord, because he's the one that gives you rest. We've got to be synced with him. And he goes on to say, which in turn makes us even more restless. What does? Careerism, materialism, shopping. Let me just say that for a couple people in here. Shopping. And the cycle spirals out of control. It just keeps going and going and going. So lastly, I'm going to call the worship team up. We're going to have a communion time. And I'm going to hit the last phrase in the passage. And so worship team's going to come. The plan for rest is transformational. So if the promise is supernatural, the plan is transformational. So that means, I love what it says. It says, my yoke is easy, Jesus said, my burden is light. So he's like, this is what I call in your notes, just write down the great exchange. Because you're exchanging something. You're exchanging busyness and worry and anxiety for something else, for what Jesus wants and what his desire is. I'm trading, as we're talking about communion this morning, sin, suffering, and shame for his righteousness, his rule, his reign. Amen? His righteousness, his rule, his reign. I'm trading my sin and my suffering and my shame. And so if you're a follower of Christ, then we're going to ask you to come forward at any point here as the music is going to start and get the elements. The bread represents the body. The cup represents the blood that was shed for you, the body that was broken. And so you're going to take those elements at your seat. And if you're not a follower or you haven't turned to him in repentance and faith, use this time because you're unrest, your spirit is unrest, and there's no solution to that apart from God. So let's take a look at the plan for rest and the promises for God's word. When my kids were small, it was funny because we're painting a house. And so we're going to paint our house a different color. It's like, okay, let's get the house painted. So as many people do, when you paint your house, you take like 3 different colors, right? And so you go outside and you go and you put like a couple, this panel, then right under it's this panel, then right under. So you're looking at the 3 colors and you're trying to discern. Do it in a place where not everybody's going to see, right? Anybody? And so we bring the girls out. We think, well, what do you think? What do you like? Yeah, we like it. So specific, these children. Which one do you like? We like it. They thought we were going to paint the house striped. I'm not kidding. They're like, no, we like it like that. That's going to be awesome. Everybody in the neighborhood's going to be talking about us. That's not really awesome. And then it hit me. Think about what they were doing. They were just trying to do something radical. They were just trying to do something different. They were just trying to do something nobody else does. Could I suggest to you that when we talk about spiritual rest, it's radical. It's different. Nobody else is really doing it. Even in the church, we're too busy, man. We're just doing stuff and doing stuff and doing stuff. And we need rest. Lastly, as I prepare you for when you're holding the elements, when you're holding the elements in your hand, I want you to think this thought. Jesus, think about the picture of when he was baptized. It's in the Gospels. And anybody remember, what did God say from heaven to declare? This is my beloved Son with whom I am well pleased. That was at the baptism. It was before he started his ministry. And so Jesus, just hang with me for a moment. Jesus, he led and he lived from a blessing, not for a blessing. Did you hear what I just said? He loved, he led, he lived from the blessing, not for a blessing to please God. And I don't know about you, but that's a turn I need today. And as you're holding the elements in your hand, maybe your rest is like mine, that God, I need to live from your blessing, not for it. God, I need to lead from your blessing, not for it. God, I need to lead from your blessing, not for it. I need to work from your blessing, not for it. I need to parent from your blessing, not for a blessing. God has ultimately blessed us. May we rest in his Spirit. Let's stand to our feet. Father, thank you for this time. Thank you for this moment. I pray for your rest to impart us as we respond, as we feel led, and we grab the elements and we take them at our seats.